Hi, good evening. This is the Legal Knowledge. My name is Michael, and to give a bit of a brief background on the show, history, this is everything that we should have known and we're never supposed to find out. The topic for tonight is 9/11 Revisited in remembrance of the 6-year anniversary, a tad bit later than the actual anniversary. You can go to the website right here, illegalknowledge.com, and there's a companion. You can suggest topics for the show. It's sort of a shared blog on the main page. There are a number of forums available, and go there, check it out, comment, put down whatever you want. The next week's show, this week being 9/11 Revisited, next week's show will be media and corporatism. There are several other show dates that do not have topics yet, so please go to the website and send your feedback, talk about what you want to see on the show. When we talk about September 11th and the events that occurred and everything, I'm going to go back into the history of what is known as false flag events or Hegelian dialectic. The Hegelian dialectic would be if you have a thesis and you have an antithesis, you can create synthesis. Kind of like problem, solution, reaction. You create a false problem, create an equally false solution, and provide the desired reaction. The events that occurred on 9/11, a lot of people use the words "que bono," who benefits, Latin phrase, to what good is a direct translation. In terms of what has happened over the years, over the past 6 years, it's probably more than obvious to most people that what had happened on 9/11 and the story of what supposedly had happened by the 9/11 Commission report is probably fairly well off the mark compared to actually what may have been happening and had been planned. And so we'd like to talk about that a little on the show tonight. Eventually we will have open lines. If you're a prank caller, don't even bother. First, I'd like to talk a little about the history of false flag events in general, and that in this country we tend to create war to support the mechanism that funds the war, that makes money off of the war. Throughout history, that has been the case on pretty much every war. Very rarely have there been times where wars were genuinely fought, and usually those were smaller wars. When wars involve many countries on a global scale with many armies, they're generally for the benefit of the moneylenders who give the money to finance the wars, and for the benefit of the people that make the machines, that make the bombs, that make what have you, to create the effects of the war. One of the, not to go too far back, but it was 1898 where we had the rallying cry for the Spanish-American War was "Remember the Maine," and well, as it turns out, we had basically blown up our own ship in Havana Harbor so that we could go to war to gain various territories, various concessions, various sphere of influences in our hemisphere. This is really well established. And after that, there had been, well, there was a whole issue with World War I and how we got into World War I, why we were isolationist, how we got out from being isolationist, not necessarily the Lusitania, but the Mexican ambassador. And these events were created to put us into the war, because otherwise we would not have, as a populace, the United States people particularly do not really like war very much. I mean, they're right-wing extremists who totally want war and whatever for whatever reason. But the majority of the people of the United States are fairly, well, no, not at all. And there better be a very, 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 very good reason for if we do something like that. And the way that our government historically has gotten us into wars is by providing us that reason, in context of we create this event so that it leads. Again, Hegelian dialectic. You're creating false problem, false solution for desired reaction, which is, who benefits? The money lenders, in this case, the Federal Reserve Banks being well, throughout, since then. For certainly the defense industry. Pearl Harbor has now been pretty well shown completely to have been, the Japanese ministers were there and talking with Roosevelt a couple of weeks prior, and then he moves the aircraft carrier fleet out of Pearl Harbor to South America to get them clear out of the way, because the war will be won with the aircraft carriers, obviously. And so the battleships all need to be rebuilt, and that funded the war effort and got, you could say, pet two dogs with one hand, it's really killed two birds with one stone. Helped get us out of the Depression once and for all by creating this false industry. When that war was over, we had to do more. We had to do Korea. We had the Gulf of Tonkin is a very, very glaring example of how we got ourselves into Vietnam, not because anybody attacked any ships. There were people on the ships that they were never attacked. There were witnesses to that, sworn affidavits, it's in the record. And it's, in order for us to get into war, which we actually, in order to keep the defense industry going, I mean, we had the Cold War, we had all of this stuff. What happens is when Soviet communism ended up failing with Glasnost, Boris Yeltsin coming in, we had the Cold War totally going, and the defense industry was fully supportive of that. When that collapsed, well, so would the industry. And if you don't have an enemy to fight, in the words of Alex Jones, you have to manufacture one. Now, we did a pretty good job of that. In the 70s, we got into Afghanistan against the Soviets. We trained the people who would later become Al-Qaeda. Osama bin Laden is a CIA asset, as they're called. And in the CIA, his name is Tim O'Brien. Because I guess you can't call him like, Osama. I mean, you got to call him something like Tim O'Brien. I don't know why, but the point is that he is a known asset to the CIA, and he was recruited for the purpose of, perpetuation of war in Afghanistan with the Soviets. Whether it was a route for a pipeline or just, creating something to have an enemy against, Um, after that, after the whole Soviet Union collapsed, and well, I mean, we can look at Iraq too. I mean, we can look and see how we were in. This was covered in a prior episode in the question of the Middle East. You can look at that. I want to just go through the history more or less to get caught up to understand. And there were many other cases. We had Iraq. We had Grenada. There was before that, you know, we had the whole thing with Panama, and then again, not just the Iraq and Iran war that we were funding, but then we had basically we greenlit we saw the troops massing on the border between Iraq and Kuwait, and did nothing until, oh yeah, well, and then we're, you know, all indignant about, you can't invade this country, and, you know, certainly there was no effort prior to that, even though we knew it was going to happen, to, you know, maybe say mitigate, or hey, should we, you know, there's none of that sort of effort. 6 years ago, 6 years and 4 days ago, unless of course you're watching this on the replay, in which case you can't call in, the case basically in that, you know, Kosovo wasn't helping all that much, and there wasn't much else going on. Well, people like Paul Wolfowitz and, you know, Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney, of course, they're in this thing called the Project for the New American Century, not to mention other groups like the Trilateral Commission, and then CFR, Bilderberger's Bohemian Society. These people in PNAC and Project for a New American Century decided that, well, there's not enough money going towards the defense industry, and we need to put more money in towards the defense industry. So, they had this report that came out in 1998, which talked about rebuilding America's defenses, the title of it. And it said that they would like to, you know, increase the budget of the military by, you know, couple $100 billion, by roughly an increase of an extra 50% above what it is currently, and perhaps more. And that absence any catastrophic or catalyzing events, it was likely to take years, if not decades. Now, of course, they got their catastrophic and catalyzing events on September 11th. Before September 11th of 2001, there were people who were talking about, you know, a lot of Al Qaeda stuff going on, and pardon me, and then there was a larger network and things going on, and then, you know, maybe we should investigate this, and maybe we should figure out what is going on. So in June of 2001, rather than, you know, say, hey, yeah, that's a good idea, let's go ahead and do that, George Walker Bush, gives an order to the FBI saying, well, hands off Al Qaeda. You can't touch them. And there was this person, John O'Neill, who was one of the people, a whistleblower within the FBI. He said, what are you talking about? What do you mean hands off Al-Qaeda? This is a very, very large strike. And was fired as a result of speaking out against the administration's wishes. Currently, and since about that point in time, there, well, I mean, maybe a year after that, actually, there have been two schools of thought, which are LIHOP and MIHOP. And LIHOP is an acronym, as is MIHOP, and the difference between LIHOP and MIHOP, LIHOP and MIHOP, is the one is let it happen on purpose, and the other is make it happen on purpose. And it's become that debate, given the actual data, the historical, the indisputable part of the public record, the facts of the matter. If Bush had said, you know, okay, well, maybe we should investigate, you know, what's going on with Al-Qaeda, or say in the August 8th of 2001, the presidential Delhi brief, which the title of which was Bin Laden determined to strike targets within the United States. I know, but Bush isn't much of a reader, and well, yeah, okay, if you're going to have people read for you, okay, great. But at the same time, wouldn't you suppose something with that title would have maybe been brought to the attention of Bush, or, you know, somebody that would, and not just thrown under the rug, which it was thrown under the rug. So it appears that very easily, very, 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 very easily, let it happen on purpose. Because, well, of course, if they're going to strike targets in the U.S., we can get a new war. You know, of course, that is going to be, well, pretty indisputable. The make it happen on purpose part is what we're going to talk about a lot tonight, actually.